Hey guys, MVC here for the ScanPro Gaming time for another video review. This time I actually picked up the Asus ROG Gladius from Eurogamer, one of the Asus reps at our Scan Computers booth, and it's a mouse that I've been very excited about for some time now. It's a right-handed ergonomic design mouse, kind of similar to the 3.0 and Death Adder that I grew up using in PC gaming. So yeah, without further ado, let's go ahead and just jump into a quick overview. The Asus ROG Gladius is a right-handed ergonomic form factor design mouse. It features a special steel grey coating to minimize sweat and stickiness and two Mayan pattern rubber side panels to ensure a good grip. And this is definitely a mouse inspired by the original Microsoft IntelliMouse 3.0 and potentially Razer Death Adder. Now, the mouse features 6 programmable buttons, the side buttons of which are slight to press, an implementation I'm definitely a huge fan of as it doesn't require you to lift your thumb up to push down the button, simply slide it up, so to speak. Now, the scroll wheel is definitely a good implementation, one of the better ones I've seen in recent times. It features an Alps encoder, and the scroll is definitely well defined, and the click isn't too heavy, meaning if you switch weapons in game using the mouse wheel or use it to jump, you're going to be able to do it effectively here with the Gladius. Now, underneath the mouse and in the box we find spare mouse feet. This gains access to spare mouse 1 and mouse 2 switches. Personally, I really like the feel of all the switches on the mouse. They feel very responsive and satisfying to use. But if you want to swap them out from the already pre-installed Omron D2FC F7N, you can do with the included D2F01F. As well as that, there's a whole different range of switch you can also drag and drop into the mouse if you want to do so, but simply unscrew the mouse feet, get in, swap them out and put on the spare set and you're good to go. Finally, the mouse features a 6400 dpi optical sensor featuring 200 IPS, 50G of acceleration and less than 1.5mm of liftoff distance that can be further customized and increased in the drivers. But yeah, let's go ahead and jump into a quick driver overview. Okay, so before we jump into some gameplay, let's first have a look at the ROG Armory software that comes bundled with the Gladius mouse. And as always, I recommend you hit up the Asus website just to download the latest set from the get-go. It's going to automatically update the firmware and make sure you don't run into any issues that may have already been ironed out since manufacturing. But on install, this is what we're greeted with, and I can only assume there'd be other Asus products here from the ROG brand if we had them plugged in, but currently only the Gladius. Now, on the left, we can store various profiles on the PC, one of which is on the mouse. Again, we can create new ones and drag and drop for whichever one we want to use. Now, these are independent, so if you do update the one on the mouse, you'll need to update the one on the PC if you've got a clone of it, and vice versa. But go ahead and remove that, and we're currently using the one stored on the mouse. Now, under buttons, we can reassign pretty much everything we want, including the DPI shift on the top. We've got mouse function, window shortcut, multimedia, and macro. The only thing I'm really missing here is the ability to bind it to a keyboard key, such as caps lock, which is something that I have done in the past in previous software. And finally, macro, again, can be useful for something like World of Warcraft if you want to sync together multiple spells to run after one each other, or to, let's say, rapid fire, adjusting the delay between shots, stuff like that. You can do it again under the macro tab right here. Now, next tab along, we've got performance. Here we've got our two sensitivity levels, which are signified by the LED on the top of the mouse. Currently got 1600 and 800. One of the interesting things I found about this mouse is it seems to run about 50 dpi faster than the Logitech G402 and the Asus Strix. So just something to bear in mind, but does have DPI in increments of 50 all the way up to 6400. And again, I don't really see the need to have more than, let's say, 2 steps anyway, so this is just fine. Next one along, we've got acceleration and deceleration. Again, acceleration on the 3988, there's absolutely none inherent to the sensor, some of them more commonly found on laser. What this means is if I was to move the mouse from the left to the right of the pad slowly and do it quickly, doesn't matter, I'd end up in the same place in game in terms of 360s or 180s or whatever. Now, if I was to increase the acceleration and do it faster, I'd move further in game. And if I was to set it back to default and increase the deceleration and move it faster, I'd move less in game. In other words, acceleration is really good when it can be controlled, and because the 3988 features no inherent, meaning that without this and with both sliders disabled, it moves in the same spot no matter how fast or slow I move it, it's good that you can again do it in the software here if you want it. So perfect implementation of it. Next one along, we've got angle snapping. This allows us to draw straighter lines. So if we go ahead and open this, lower the DPI to 800, and if I try and draw a straight line, you can see it's a little difficult. But if I play something like Counter-Strike, what I might want to do, and this is definitely not recommended, is set it to maximum, which is just ridiculous. If I draw in a straight line now and even try and do diagonals, it's like impossible. It just like forces it down. But what you'll find is on other mice and a setting on this mouse is about one or two. So if I set it to the first one, come back into paint and try and draw a straight line. Again, easier, but I can also do diagonals. It pulls me down a little bit depending on the angle I go. So what you might find is, again, you might want to go one more if it's not pulling you down enough. But it can be useful for things like CS. It was frowned upon for a long time. With the original Razor Death Adder, they ended up removing prediction through a no drift control patch on the original one. But there is still a fair amount of people that opt to use angle snapping because it can be beneficial. And again, it's good that you can do it here to whatever degree you want. And finally, we have polling rate. Now, as of 1.08 released just days ago, we can actually go above 1000 all the way up to 2000. So 125 is a polling rate of 8 milliseconds, 500 is 2 milliseconds, 1000 is 1 millisecond, 2000 is 0.5. Again, this is a world first. Anything above 1000 has so far not been possible on any of the popular gaming mice used on the market. So we technically just stick with 1000 for every product we go to. But again, if you want to use 2000, the option is here, and it's definitely something you want to try out if you pick up the mouse. Next up, we've got lightning. We can set breathing or steady for the logo right here. We can also disable and enable the scroll wheel, the DPI switch, and the ROG logo. So if I was to set steady right here, you just see that light stays on forever, pretty much. But breathing kind of looks cool, so we're going to leave it at that. And finally, calibration, which is going to allow us to tune it to the various surface that we use. There's various preset ones: cloth, metal, plastic, glass, and wood. It's going to adjust the lift-off distance slightly to whatever it feels is suitable for that style of mousepad. So we could just set cloth. Alternatively, we can go ahead and manually calibrate, hit start, move the mouse around. No, it doesn't really tell you what to do, but I assume this is what you do until we get control. And this will adjust the lift-off distance a little bit. It's definitely a little bit lower. And you can also, if you wanted to, increase it. But it's telling us low is fine. And that's pretty much essentially what it's doing. It is calibrating and adjusting the lift-off distance for the surface based on what you use. And again, if you use a multicolored surface, you might find you need to increase the lift-off distance a little bit. And again, this isn't a great representation. No way is it this high. It's actually much lower than that. It's like maybe 2 CDs height at the moment for me. Yeah, this on this image here, it looks at least like 5 millimeters. It's not what it appears to be. Much lower. But we don't use that. We like everything raw. Works fine on my QCK. Happy. But yeah, I mean, that's the ROG software. Extremely happy with it. There's nothing else I would want to see in the software. They've covered all bases beyond the fact I would like to bind a keyboard button to obviously the upper section because I don't really use the DPI shift. But again, yeah, let's jump into some gameplay. Okay, so before I talk about my thoughts on how the mouse performs, let me just show the theory there's zero acceleration inherent here in the 3988 sensor. So we found a corner in the wall, and normally what I tell you to do is do a 360 and measure out how far on the mouse pad it takes you to get there. That gives you a good reference point if you play a number of different games, and also allows you to test for acceleration moving it slow and fast. However, because we've got a thick mouse pad, we're going to move it from the left to the right until it stops tracking, which is just past the corner of the wall. And again, allowing for some small degree of human error because the mouse is curved at the edge. We should end up about in the same place. Now, if we go ahead and do it fast, again, if we had acceleration, we'd end up somewhere here after the 360, but I suspect we're going to end up about in the same place. Again, it's looking slightly down there as I messed up along the way, and again really fast in the same place. So what this is essentially telling us is there's zero acceleration inherent in the sensor. I mean, if we want to develop some kind of muscle memory for flick shots, we're going to be able to do that effectively. And on top of that, if we use a low sensitivity and want to add our own preferred amount of acceleration, we can do that without having to worry about anything already there on the sensor. So either in-game or in the drivers is fine. And yeah, to be honest, really happy with the performance of the sensor in terms of acceleration. So moving on to gameplay with the ROG Gladius, and again I have to point out this is a short segment for a long time playing with the mouse, but what I want to mention is that there was zero transitional period going from my traditional 3.0 and Razer Death Adder 3.5G to the ROG Gladius. Now of course I reviewed a lot of mice in between, and one of the things that came up a lot is the weight of the mouse, and the ROG Gladius is definitely on the heavier side, but unlike some of the other ones that I've used, I actually found myself getting used to it quite quickly. The shape of it and the sort of differences to the 3.0 in Death Adder definitely complement the weight, and it's not something I'd rule out entirely for those people that use lighter mice. But if you are someone that strictly sticks to a lighter mouse, definitely read some other reviews to get their feedback on it. But personally, I felt myself getting used to it, and after about 5 to 10 minutes, I completely forgot about the increased weight to the mouse that I usually use. And again, that's probably directly translated into the build quality of this mouse, because it's ridiculously high. But in terms of playing Quake 3, a map Amphi, a map that I always like to play, the implementation of the 3988 was absolutely perfect. Definitely the best that I've played with to date so far, and I had no trouble following directional changes of the enemy model. And playing games like Counter-Strike, hitting people through mid doors on Dust 2, again, absolute joy to do thanks to that quick button response that's present on the Asus mouse, and something that I would definitely consider using moving forward myself. I was thoroughly impressed playing all of my games with the Gladius. So final thoughts for the ROG Gladius gaming mouse. I have to say, from the minute I took it out the box, it just screamed high quality. And again, I still stand by my original statement that it is the best built gaming mouse on the market. And that translates directly to what you get in the box and the value for money you're actually getting here, because it's really built to last. Asus have simply asked, what could people complain about? And then given you an alternative to fix that. You've got a spare non-braided cable, if braided cables don't interest you, although it's only 1 meter as opposed to 2, which kind of interests me as to why they've done that. Secondly, you get a spare mouse feet if you want to swap out the spare mouse switches from Omron to get a different feel, but personally I can't see anybody wanting to do that. I felt the included switches pre-installed onto the mouse provided the perfect actuation force requirement. It wasn't too low, it wasn't too much, and on top of that, the response and feedback you get from the switch, even down to the sound you get, is therapeutic, and I can't imagine anybody wanting to swap it out. So for that reason, I do refer to them as spare mouse feet, because they are what they are, spare mouse feet if the current ones installed ever wear down if you use a hard pad, so on and so forth. Now, in terms of the shape, definitely a very inspired shape from the 3.0 in Death Adder, something that I definitely loved straight out the box, had no trouble adapting to, and hitting people in Quake 3 and CES was just an absolute joy to do. Extremely fast button response and no troubles with sensor responsiveness whatsoever. On top of that, they've thought of everything you could possibly add into the drivers and added them beyond the fact, again, I would like to bind one of the buttons on the mouse to a keyboard button, such as caps lock. Again, could be added through a driver update. Now, the only thing to worry about if you are buying this mouse is that it's definitely on the heavier side. Now, like I mentioned in the review, the shape definitely complements the weight to a certain extent, but there's still going to be a fair few people out there that could be a little disappointed as it is on the heavier side. But that said, I did find myself getting used to it, unlike other heavier mice on the market, and could see myself using it moving forward. Now, whether that's due to the shape already being comfortable for me and I could be more forgiving of the weight, I don't know. But for me, I could definitely use it, and I know a lot of 3.0 in Death Adder users that are looking for an upgrade here in 2014, moving into 2015, that could quite happily switch to and win tournaments using the Gladius. And I guess that's basically the best compliment I can give it. Choice of champions, ROG are a company that are known for releasing one product and pretty much nothing for a long time after that until they feel like it's worthy of an upgrade. And this is definitely not so much worthy of an upgrade anytime soon. They've nailed it in every aspect. Again, just could have potentially been a little bit lighter. But there's also the Strix brand that are probably going to release more products in a shorter duration. So again, they've got the Claw Mouse already out if you want to check that out. But from the ROG brand perspective, the ROG Swift Monitor, the mouse pad they've already got, and the keyboard coming soon. This is definitely a company, including headsets as well, you could perhaps have one of everything on your table and be happy with. So yeah, I'm really impressed with the Gladius. Thanks guys for tuning in. Any questions or comments, as always, check it out below and leave it there and I'll get back to you. But again, please check out the product on the Scan website if you are interested, and we'll catch you next time here on the Scan Pro Gaming tab.